You know, normally when gold dries out, it really shrivels up a lot, but that is still an impressive looking pile in the bottom of that beaker. I think we got a lot of gold here. I can't wait to weigh it. Let's do that next. Well, hello scrappers, Mike here. Welcome back to my channel. So this video is going to be a little longer than usual. Some of you in the comments in the past have said that you'd prefer to see all of the steps in one long video rather than having it broken up into multiple shorter videos. So we're going to experiment with that today. I'm going to do all this in one video, and it's going to be a little longer than usual. Leave a comment and let me know if you like this format or if you'd prefer me to break it up into 2 or more shorter videos. Okay? Well, since this video is going to be long, we're not going to go through a lot of preamble. Let's just get right into it. What's going on today? Well, this is what's going on today. When my friend Johnny blew through town not too long ago, he left me with this massive sack of close-cut gold fingers here that he wants me to process for him and remove the gold. I love fingers. There's not a huge amount of gold here, but it's really, really easy to get. I like easy. So let's see if we can figure out how to do these. But first, let's see if we can figure out how much material we've got here, weight-wise anyway, so we can calculate a yield in the end. We've got 4.278 kilograms. So 4,278 grams. Yes, Richard, I know I'm weighing the bag. Some of you object to having all the units in metric. So it's 9.435 pounds. But hey, all science is done in metric units. That's how much we've got mass-wise or weight-wise here. But boy, is the volume pretty darn huge. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to process these. I may have to split these up amongst, say, 2 5-liter beakers, or maybe a 5-liter and a 3-liter. I don't know. I don't want to overfill them too much. There's got to be, you know, room for some bubbling, which I think is going to happen. So let me peruse my glassware and see if I can figure out how to do these. And then we're going to talk about how I'm going to do them once I find glassware that'll hold them. I would like to do these without nitric acid, if I can. If I can. I know a lot of you folks out there can't buy nitric acid easily. So, and I know nitric acid's pretty expensive if you can buy it, although I have found a source where it's pretty cheap, and I'll put a link to a video in the upper right where I talk about that source and buy some acid from them. But, yeah, we're going to try and do these without nitric acid and see if we can wind up with some nice gold without having to use any nitric acid. So let me go peruse my glassware. We'll get these sorted out between a couple of different beakers and we'll get to work. All right, so I've come to a decision. The only practical way to process all these is in multiple batches. I've got to have multiple projects going in the fume hood at once. So I'm not going to be able to process more than one beaker at a time. So I think what I'm going to have to do is maybe do these a couple pounds, a kilo or so at a time. So let me get one of my big 5-liter beakers here on the scale, and we'll see how much material I think I can safely get in it. All right, 0. So I got to leave a little headroom, I'm sure. So what's that? That's a kilo. That's 1,018 grams. I think we can go a little more. Let's do like a kilo and a half. Yeah, I think we can do a little bit more in this big beaker. There's 1.3. 0.412. Yeah, I think we can get a kilo and a half in here. There we go. That's almost exactly a kilo and a half. 1.504 or 3.325 pounds. All right, so we'll get this into the fume hood and get started. All right, here we are. Let's get started here. Gonna just cover the fingers with distilled water. And don't worry, I have more distilled water. The shortage that seemed to go on around here for years is over with. I can get distilled water these days. It's great. A lot of people said, well, you should distill your own or use rainwater or other suggestions. Well, distilling my own would take way too much time and energy. And I live very near the ocean. And believe it or not, our rainwater is rather salty. And for a lot of what I do, you don't want any chloride in your water. So those were not options, but I'm glad I can get distilled water again. Okay, so I've got those just covered with water. How am I going to do this without nitric acid? We're going to do it with what's called poor man's nitric acid. Basically, we're going to put some sulfuric acid in here. I know. Sulfuric acid's hard to get for a lot of people, too, in different places, like the EU and other places. But what can you do? You know, you got to do this somehow. And hopefully, you know, even in those places, hopefully you can get a hold of like some battery acid strength stuff. This would probably work with battery acid strength stuff. But I'm going to put in some concentrated sulfuric acid, just like so. Now that alone isn't going to do much. I'm going to put in a nitrate salt. In this case, it's going to be sodium nitrate. Why sodium nitrate? I happen to have a lot of sodium nitrate. I bought a 10-pound bag of it a couple of years ago. I'm still using it. So we'll put some sodium nitrate in here. A couple of big healthy spoonfuls. Maybe a little more. Cover it up. I have not put any heat to this yet, but I suspect putting the sulfuric acid in probably warmed it up. Oh yeah, it's warm. I'm going to put some low heat to it too, just to keep it warm. And we can already see some bubbling happening. As that as that sodium nitrate dissolves, the sulfuric acid is going to convert it into nitric acid. And we're going to start dissolving the base metals underneath the gold. So what we have here is sort of a layer cake. If we look at these gold foils, what they are basically is there's copper traces there underneath, copper to conduct the electricity. Then they're overplated with something a little bit harder than copper, possibly nickel. A lot of times it's nickel. And then they plate gold on top of that as a conducting layer to mate with the connector, so that there's not much resistance at the mating surface in the connector. What we need to do to free up that gold is dissolve the copper and nickel underneath it. And then the gold, which won't be touched by these acids, will just sort of float off as a very thin gold foil. And that's what we want. So as this stuff continues to warm up, I think we're going to start seeing some action in there. There's a little bit of half-hearted bubbling at the moment. But I think as this warms up, we're going to see a whole lot more action. And I can put more acid and nitrate on this as needed until we get all of those gold foils, free from the underlying substrate, which in this case is fiberglass. Though some of the older ones might be phenolic. Some of Johnny's older fingers, I think, are phenolic. And I like those because the older ones have really thick gold foils on them. So I think we're going to do well with this. So we'll just let this warm up and get the reaction started. All right, it's been about a half hour. I went in to have some lunch. I got kind of a late start today. But yeah, we got some good bubbling going on. We got some orange fume production up here. So this is working great. Gonna take a while, but that's okay because this is a lot less expensive than nitric acid. It may not even take that much longer than nitric acid. Um, I like the poor man's nitric because it gives you a two-pronged attack on the base metal in there. You've got the sulfuric acid I put in first, and then nitric acid is produced after I put in a nitrate salt. So we've got two different acids in there attacking the base metal. So we will get all that base metal dissolved and free up those gold foils on those fingers. There's a lot of material there, so it is going to take a while, but I'm not sure it's going to take really any longer than nitric acid, and it's going to be a whole lot less expensive. Sulfuric acid's dirt cheap, nitrate salt's dirt cheap, nitric acid expensive, if you can get it. So that's why we're doing it this way. All right, so we're just going to let it cook for now and see how it goes. All right, it's been a total of maybe an hour, maybe a little more. We got some gold floating on the surface, some free gold in there. You can see it, there's mist on the inside of the beaker. And down here, some of the gold fingers in there are starting to look wrinkly, like they're trying to let go. This is actually going pretty quick. Yeah, not too shabby, and a whole lot cheaper than nitric acid. All right, we'll just let it continue to cook. We'll get there in the end. All right, it's been maybe another half hour. So we've been at this for maybe close to 2 hours. And there's a lot of floating gold. I see a lot of loose gold in there. Gold's starting to drift to the bottom. The liquid's turned deep green, blue-green. So it's dissolving a lot of base metal. So this is working really well. I just gave it a little more acid nitrate off camera because I thought the fumes were getting a little bit sparse in there. I wanted to make sure that the reaction kept going. And it is going. We are liberating that gold. Excellent. Keep that going. Boy, have we got a lot of gold floating in there. We're about, I don't know, three and a half hours in now. I'll give you a close-up look at that with my phone. Check this out. Whoa, yeah. The gold's really coming off. Got a ways to go, but it's working. I'll probably let this go the rest of the afternoon and leave it on low heat overnight. And we'll see what it looks like in the morning. Alrighty, this stuff's been on relatively low heat all night. There is a whole lot of gold and I guess solder mask floating in here. There's a lot of free gold. There's a lot of gold down at the bottom of the beaker here. I don't know how much of it's showing up. There seems to be a lot of gold still stuck to quite a few of the fingers, although a lot of it looks loose. Some of it looks like it's hanging by a thread, but some of it still looks like it's still on there pretty good. And some of it's coming off as I try to stir this stuff. I can't really effectively stir it. I think what I'm going to do is give this another shot of acid and nitrate salt and let it go until it looks like we've got some more of the, see those right there? Those look like they're still on there pretty good. I can't rub them off. Well, actually, I am rubbing them off. So they're almost ready to come off. They're not quite. So I'm going to give this another shot of acid and nitrate salt, and we'll let this cook for a little while longer. I mean, it hasn't even been on for 24 hours, and there's a whole lot of material in there. But, whoa. Let's see. Can you see the gold building up on the bottom of the beaker? And the gold floating on top of the beaker? You get a lot of gold free in there, but there's still some attached. So I'll do that off camera. Give it another shot of acid and nitrate, and we'll just let it cook for at least a few more hours, or hey, the whole day. I don't care. I've got other stuff I'm working on. It can just sit there and do its thing until it looks like it's ready to go. All right, this looks like it's pretty much done. Ooh, we got a mess up here though, but it looks like it's done. But it's late in the day, so I'm going to turn the heat off, let it cool down, and we'll tackle the rest of it tomorrow morning. I need to get this blue-green liquid off of it, capture any gold that comes over, and then we've got to dissolve all the gold and filter the resulting liquid. And remember, we're not going to use nitric acid, so stay tuned to see how we are going to do it. All right, so what's next for this stuff? Well, first thing I did on this cool is I scraped all of the stuff that was stuck to the inside of the beaker down into the liquid, because there was a lot of like melted, I guess this is solder mask that was stuck to the inside of the beaker, and there was a lot of gold stuck in there. So I scraped it down with a sacrificial razor blade here, and there's copper plating all over the razor blade now, everywhere it touched the liquid in there. Yeah, completely plated with copper. I'll give you a close-up look at this with my phone. That's kind of cool. Yep, copper-plated razor blade. You never seen one before. There you go. Just from touching that blue-green liquid in there, all the copper in that liquid just plated right out on the steel. Yeah, there's a lot of nasty solder mask in there. There's a lot of gold embedded in the solder mask. We're going to deal with that in a second. I'll show you how. So here's my cutting plan. I'm going to filter this liquid off, and we're going to catch all this floating gold on top that's embedded in solder mask, and we'll catch any other gold that comes over on this filter. And when I'm ready to dissolve all this gold, I'll throw the filter back in here so we don't lose any of it. I'm also going to give this stuff a couple of rinses and run the winch water through the filter. So again, if any of this gold, and there's a lot of it down around the bottom of the beaker, any of it comes out, we'll capture it and we won't lose it. So that's the plan. And there's a lot of liquid in this beaker, so I will probably have to empty it a couple of times as I go. I have to empty my receiving flask, I should say, a couple of times as I go, because there's a lot of liquid here. But we got to get rid of this copper, nickel, whatever else is in here. We got to get rid of it and just leave behind the gold. So, yeah. So this is going to take a while. I got a feeling my filter's going to plug too, and I'm going to have to empty this a couple of times. So this is going to take a little while. We'll be back when I'm done and we're ready to recover the gold, and then I'll tell you how we're going to do it. A little different than what you're used to, maybe. All right, I got all of the blue liquid off of this stuff. I'm going to rinse it with some distilled water and pour off the rinses. And then we'll tackle dissolving the gold. Okay, I've rinsed this stuff pretty darn well. I'll give you a look at what's going on up here in the filter. We've got a lot of gold and solder mask in the filter. I'll grab that filter and put it in here before we get started recovering the gold. Yeah, here's what it looks like in the filter. Fair amount of gold collected in there. We don't want to lose that. So I'll add that to this beaker over here before we get started. So this blue-green liquid, it's a waste product, all right? There's nothing of value in there. Well, actually, there's a lot of copper, as we saw from the razor blade experiment. There's a lot of copper in there. Copper's having a moment. It's worth money these days. So we're not going to just dump this stuff out. I mean, it's not environmentally responsible, first off. It's illegal, secondly. And third, there's a valuable metal in there. So this will go through my waste process. I will cement out the copper and any other heavy metals in this stuff on scrap iron. And then the liquid will be treated to precipitate out iron and any other metals in it. And it will be neutralized, neutral pH, and then it can be disposed of. And, hey, I'll get copper, which is great. Subscribe. In the future, you may see me working with some of the waste copper I recover from my waste treatment process. Maybe we'll make some ingots and bars or something. All right, let me get the bench cleared off and we'll talk about how we're going to dissolve the gold in this stuff. All right, so how are we going to dissolve the gold in here so we can separate it from all this debris? Now, normally, I would dissolve gold using uriatic acid or hydrochloric acid, technical name, and a little bit of nitric acid to make aqua regia, and that'll dissolve the gold. But we've decided we're not going to use nitric acid today. So how am I going to do it? Well, you could use hydrogen peroxide, that's a possibility, or you can use bleach. Sodium hypochlorite will work too for dissolving the gold. I actually like the muriatic acid and bleach method for dissolving gold from fingers. I think it works great, and if you can't get access to nitric acid, it's a very cheap alternative. Now, the bleach you want is the absolute cheapest non-brand name generic laundry bleach you can find that has sodium hypochlorite in it in 5 to 7%. That'll work great. Don't get this stuff, which has thickening agents and anti-slosh agents in it. That's the new thing these days. This is like a gel so that you don't slosh it all over and leave bleach stains on your clothes. That's great, but we don't want those gelling agents in here. So, like I said, get the cheapest bleach you can find. Or, there's another alternative. Pool chlorinating liquid. That's what I'm going to use because it's the same stuff as this, only more concentrated, and it doesn't have any additives in it. It's just sodium hypochlorite solution. That's it. No gelling agents, no aroma, no nothing. Just the chemical we need, sodium hypochlorite, and it's stronger. So that's what we're going to use. So let me get this in the fume hood. We'll put some muriatic acid on it, and we'll start adding enough of this to get the gold in solution. This is very dangerous. I got to give this disclaimer here. This is one of the more dangerous things I do. Don't do this in your kitchen. Don't do it on your patio. Don't do it with kids or pets around. Doing it outside is problematic unless you can guarantee you stay upwind. Because when you mix acid and bleach, what do you get? You get a deadly gas, which is why they always tell you don't mix acid and bleach. This is going to create chlorine gas, and it's going to create a lot of it. I've got a fume hood over here, so we're going to do it in the fume hood. If you don't have a fume hood, you better be wearing a respirator, doing it outside upwind with nobody else around. That's my best advice to you. Otherwise, don't do it. All right? All right, so let's get set up. I'll get this in the fume hood, and we'll get started. All right, I got the filter that has all of the gold and stuff we caught, draining the liquid off in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some muriatic acid in here, enough to cover everything. So this is going to take a lot, a few liters anyway. I really just want to get all of the circuit boards covered. I don't really need to cover the paper. I can stir the paper in. So that should be enough right there. Yeah, that's enough. Okay. So, next, the bleach, or pool chlorinating liquid in this case. Now, I'm not just going to dump it in. I measured out a little over 100 milliliters of it, but I'm not just going to dump it in. I'm going to add it very slowly because this is going to produce a whole lot of chlorine gas. We don't want to produce too fast for my fume hood to exhaust it. I don't want a big green cloud of it to come out and hit me in the face. So, but look at that. Look at that reaction. Let me zoom in on that. That reaction. That's what happens when you mix bleach and acid. Now everything here is cold. I have not put any heat to this. Yeah, we're starting to get a green cloud of chlorine in here. I don't know if it's showing up on the video or not. I have no heat on this. I may put some heat to it in a bit, but really I need this chlorine gas we're developing, and the reaction produces a bit of heat. It's gotten a bit warm. But I need that chlorine gas to dissolve in the liquid and get down in here and start dissolving all the gold that's in there. So I don't want to heat it up too much and drive the chlorine out of solution. I want it to go into solution. Yeah, you want to add this stuff slowly. And you remember, if you're going to do this, you need to do it in a fume hood, outdoors, upwind with a respirator, or not at all. Those are basically your three options. Otherwise, this will kill you. This was used in World War I as a chemical gas agent, and it killed a lot of people. My friend Ken can tell you about getting a lung full of chlorine and what it does to you. So, yeah. Okay, we're just going to let this sit for a while and see if the gold starts dissolving. I'll bet it will. Let me do a stannous chloride test on it after a while. I'll stir it from time to time, but right now I don't really want to disturb it. Let me make sure the chlorine gas stays inside as much as possible. And just let it do its thing. The chlorine will oxidize the gold and put it into solution. It'll take a little while, but it's dirt cheap. You know? Spend a little time, save a lot of money. Okay, we're just going to let it go. Alright, this has pretty much just been sitting here. I have added a little bit more bleach to it off camera, but I'm going to stir it to try and get this chlorinated liquid deeper down into the beaker. Because there's a lot of gold down on the bottom of the beaker. And there's so much material in here, it's hard to stir. I think the gold is disappearing, though. I'm not seeing a lot of it. A little bit right there. We'll see if that disappears shortly. I think it's going away. Going into solution. Yeah, there's still some there, but not much. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in some more. Cover it up and just let it sit. And I'll stir it up some more before I put in any more. And I'll just keep putting in the small shots of the bleach until I see all the gold in there has disappeared. We'll do a stannous chloride test on it, make sure we got gold in solution. But hey, if the gold disappears, where else is it going to go? Anyway, for now, just going to let it continue to do its thing. Alright, it looks like all the gold has been dissolved except for right down at the very bottom of the beaker. Now, unfortunately, I can't stir this thing. I broke one stir stick already trying to stir it. But I think if I just let this sit, I mean, we've only been at this for maybe an hour, okay? If I just let this sit, maybe a few hours, rest of the day, whatever, I think the chlorine's going to work its way down there and dissolve all the gold on the bottom of the beaker. I mean, I can keep putting more into and keep the level of chlorine in the liquid up. But certainly it has worked its way down to almost the bottom of the beaker, but most of the gold is in the bottom of the beaker. So just going to have to continue letting this do its thing. And I'll put additional shots of bleach into it from time to time. All right, so been at this for about a day now. All the visible gold is gone, except on the very bottom of the beaker. the chlorine is just not making it down there. I said I like this method for doing fingers, and generally it works, but I've never done this large a batch of fingers before, okay? I've never tried this on 1.5 kilos. So there's a whole bunch of gold on the bottom of the beaker, which I can't really show you. This thing weighs a ton now. I got a lot of liquid in it. That's just not going into solution, and I think there's just so much stuff sitting on top of it, the liquid's not circulating down there. So rather than continuing to dump more and more bleach into this and wind up with a totally unmanageable amount of liquid and maybe still not get the gold on the bottom in solution, I think I'm going to try something else. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump off the liquid that we've already created here. Rinse the finger boards in here and pull out the ones that already have the gold completely stripped off of them. Then we'll start over again with a smaller amount of liquid, less overburden on top of the stuff in the bottom of the beaker, and we'll see if we can get that gold dissolved, okay? I think that's what we need to do. In the meantime, before I start doing that, let's test this and see we actually do have gold in solution. I'd be very surprised if we didn't. Let's see here. Let's get a little of this liquid on a spot plate. Ooh, let me cover that back up. The smell of chlorine is quite strong now that it's out of the fume hood. All right, let me zoom in on the spot plate for you. And we'll put a little bit of stannous chloride on it from my on-demand stannous chloride production method here. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. We have gold in solution. Which, well, where else was it gonna go? Let's face it. So yeah, we've got gold in solution in there, but there's still, like I say, a lot of gold that hasn't gone in solution yet. So let me find a big beaker to start dumping this liquid off into, and a container to put the fiberglass strips in, and we'll see if we can't get that gold in the bottom of the beaker dissolved so it can join its friends up here. All right, let me pour off some of this liquid, maybe most of it actually. Pick this thing up. Oh, it's heavy. Yeah, I don't know if you can see the gold on the bottom of the beaker down there or not, now that I've got this up in the air. There's more liquid in there than I thought. That's okay. All right. Okay. Set this aside. What I'll do is rinse off this stuff, get pregnant liquid off of it. And then get rid of the bulk of it. So we're just down to the stuff at the bottom. And I can stir this stuff effectively. We'll be able to dissolve the rest of the gold. These are coming out. I do not see any trace of gold on them. They're coming out perfectly clean. No gold. I can rinse them again too once they're in this other beaker to make sure I get all the pregnant solution off of them. Now I'm going to keep this up until I get down to where the gold is. And we'll give this stuff another treatment and see if we can dissolve the rest of the gold. All right, that's better. I got this much material out. I'm starting to see gold on what's left in here, so I'm not going to pull any more out. And I think I'm down to the point where I can effectively stir this stuff. So let me get it back in the fume hood And we'll do it again. And then we can filter all the liquid, combine it, and drop the gold. All right, so let's get, just like last time, some hydrochloric acid on there. Just enough to cover everything. Not sure I even need that much, but we'll call that enough because I can stir this. All right. And next I need to do like before and measure out some of the bleach, or in this case pool cleaner. I can put in a few shots at a time. I don't want to put in too much at once and risk a boil over in a big cloud of chlorine. So get that closed and let's hit it. Oh yeah. Let that do its thing for a while. I will stir it thoroughly and then hit it with some more. And oh, sorry about the reflections. I think we'll be able to get the rest of that gold in solution here pretty soon. So we'll just let it go for now. Okay, so that did the trick. After getting most of the remaining fiberglass out of here, I was able to get the gold in the bottom of the beaker into solution. I've pulled the rest of the fiberglass out. I've rinsed it once, but I'm going to rinse it all again good and combine all the liquid together. And then, well, we're going to have close to 5 liters of liquid here. That's a lot of liquid, but I'm going to have to filter it. So that's going to take me a while. But I am concerned about one thing, and I think before I filter all this liquid, after I get it combined, I'm going to put it on the hot plate in the fume hood and get the temperature on it up for a while. I'm not so much thinking about boiling it down to a smaller volume. Is what I want to do is boil the chlorine out of it. Now, we don't have any nitric in here, so we don't have to worry about denoxing this stuff, but if there's too much free chlorine in it, it can kind of act like overnoxed aqua regia, and the gold won't want to come out of solution because the chlorine will want to put it right back in. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of chlorine in here because I used a lot of bleach to try and get that gold that was stuck on the bottom of the beaker in solution, and it just wasn't going. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of chlorine in this liquid. So once I get it all combined, rinse this, put that in there, put that in there. Once I get it all combined, I'm just going to throw it on the hot plate in the fume hood for a while, heat it up, and see if I can drive off as much of the chlorine out of it as possible before we move on to filtering, which, like I said, is going to take a while because there's a lot of liquid here. But getting rid of the chlorine will also help my long-suffering pump, not to have to pump a bunch of chlorine gas through it, because I'm sure, you know, it's on its last legs as is. That might be the final nail in the coffin there. All right, so I'll get to work. I will do some more rinsing on this stuff, get all the liquid together, and we'll get it in the fume hood and get it on the heat for a while. Whoa, that's a lot of liquid. Yeah, I was thinking we'd be just below 5 liters. Anyway, this has been on the heat for a little while. I've had it uncovered. I think I've driven off the bulk of the chlorine that was in the liquid. As soon as this cools down, because I just turned the heat off, we'll start filtering it so we can drop the gold. Speaking of the gold, I just did another stannous chloride test over here. And even though we got almost 5 liters of liquid, that is a good, strong gold indication. Now, that first test I did a while back, it looked kind of iffy and weak, but I think that was from all the extra chlorine in there, preventing the gold from coming out of solution. So, yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of gold out of this 1.5 kilos of fingers. So once this cools down, like I said, I'll get set up to start filtering it. All right, so I am ready to filter this massive quantity of liquid over here. So how am I going to do this? Well, very carefully. So I've got both of my filter flasks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dip liquid out of here because this is very heavy and hard to maneuver. I'm not even going to try and pour it in. I'm going to dip liquid out of here with a small beaker and dump it into the Buckner funnel here until this gets, much lighter and easier to maneuver. As my filter flasks fill up, I'll switch from one to the other, and I will dump the filtered liquid in this clean 5-liter beaker back here until I work through all of it. Then we'll be ready to drop the gold. So that's the theory. We'll see how my battle plan works here. Get the pump going. See already. I'm making a bit of a mess on the bench. I will have to clean that up and keep the rags. I have a rag and filter bucket just for Johnny's stuff, so that we don't cheat him out of any of his gold. On the whole, it seems to be working. The liquid looks like it's coming through nice and clear. Happy about that. All right. So I will just keep this up until I get through all this liquid, and then we will see if we can drop the gold out of it. Just going to take a while, because there's a lot of liquid here, and I got a feeling the filter's going to start clogging up on me, so this might take a little while. Oh yeah, that's coming through nice and clean, nice and clear. Very green, but that's to be expected. There's probably some copper residue in there, but also there's a whole lot of solder mask, green solder mask, and I'll bet a lot of this green color is dye from the solder mask. So this may actually be less polluted with base metals than it looks. We might get a good gold drop out of it. Alright, it's coming along nicely, just taking a little while. I got the first 2 liters filtered in the other beaker over there. We're working on my second vacuum flask over here. I'll fill this up pretty quick and switch back over to the 2 liter. It's been going pretty good so far, but there's a lot of debris left in the bottom of this beaker down here. There's some fiberglass board pieces. There's a whole lot of fine bits of who knows what, solder mask and whatever down there. So I'm sure once I start pouring this stuff into the funnel, it's going to clog the filter real quick, and this will really grind down to a slow process, but we'll get it all done eventually. It may just take me a little while, but fortunately for you, you don't have to sit here and watch it all. Well, wouldn't you freaking know it? I'm almost done filtering this stuff, and something's precipitating out of it and coating the bottom of the beaker. What in the world? I'm going to have to filter it again. Go a lot quicker the second time, though, since I've got most of the particulates out of it, but I don't know what we got going on down there. I might let this stuff sit overnight. It's going to get cold tonight, and then filter it again in the morning so that any crystals that want to crash out of solution can do that. I'm pretty sure that is not gold coming out of solution. Something else. Looks like transparent or white crystals or something. Not sure what. So I'm going to go ahead and finish filtering all this stuff. I basically just got what's the debris in the bottom of the beaker. I got to dump it in the filter and rinse it with some distilled water. I'll get it all in here and I'll let it sit till tomorrow. I'll give it a quick refiltration, and then we'll try and drop the gold. Hopefully won't have any more issues. All right, so here's where we stand. I've got the debris from the bottom of the beaker in here. I've been washing it with lots of distilled water and pulling it through. I've shut the pump off so you can hear me. It's getting quite loud. So just as soon as I finish pulling all the liquid off of this, because it's coming through clear now, it's not coming through green anymore. So as soon as I finish pulling the liquid off this, we'll be done. I can add that in the bottom of the vacuum flask there to this, and then we'll have all the liquid. Now, I had a thought standing here looking at this stuff forming on the bottom of the beaker here, and my thought was that's probably salt, NaCl, ordinary table salt, because I put a lot of bleach in here, sodium hypochlorite. It had a lot of hydrochloric acid in it, so we made a lot of sodium chloride. So I went in, I did a quick Googling, and yes, sodium chloride, chlorine, water, they are the end products of the reaction of sodium hypochlorite and hydrochloric acid. So we've got a lot of salt in here. So, okay, I was a little worried that we had some sort of chemical in here that was going to really pollute our gold, but no, I don't think so. It's just ordinary table salt, and it probably came out of solution as the liquid cooled down, because it's got quite cool after I took it off the heat, to evaporate off the chlorine. So yeah, it's just coming out of solution. It's probably quite salty. Not too worried about that, because even if you use SMB to drop your gold, you're going to make sodium chloride in there, so it's not really going to contaminate our gold. It's getting late in the day. I'm going to leave this overnight in the fume hood. It's probably going to get down into the mid-40s Fahrenheit tonight out here. I expect tomorrow morning I'll see a lot more salt on the bottom. I could just decant this liquid off into another 5-liter beaker and then drop the gold. It won't be a big deal. I might not even bother filtering it. So I'll just decant the liquid off and leave the salt behind if I can. So we'll see. But I think by tomorrow morning we'll be ready for a gold drop. So I'm going to restart the pump and finish pulling the liquid off of this. And then I think I will be done for tonight, because the temperature is dropping like a rock out here. And I'm going to put this in the fume hood and head into the house where it's nice and warm. So here's all of the fiberglass board ends from under the fingers. They've all been thoroughly rinsed and vacuum dried. I think I've got all of the pregnant solution out of them. Alright, we got a strange development here. I was just cleaning up. I was about to stash this in the fume hood and head into the house because it's freezing out here. I just dumped the last of the liquid in here. And I look down in the bottom of this. We got gold coming out of solution. In fact, there's some gold floating on the surface of the liquid here. So I think, salt or no salt in the bottom of this beaker, I think I'm going to have to go ahead and drop the gold out of solution tonight. It's trying to come out anyway, and I won't be able to sort the gold from the salt tomorrow. I can just warm the liquid up and dissolve the salt. So, yeah, I'm going to clean this out a little bit more and dump it in here. Put this in the fume hood. We're going to put some SMB on this and drop this gold, since it's trying to come out of solution on its own. Not the first time I've seen that happen. Sometimes gold just wants to come out of solution, and it doesn't wait for you to get the SMB out. So, I guess I did a good job of getting rid of the chlorine, the residual chlorine. Otherwise, this wouldn't be happening. All right, so let me wash some more gold out of this thing. I still see some down there. Get it in here. We'll get it all in the fume hood and drop it. All right, let's get this gold dropping out of solution. Fume hood going. All right, this is probably the biggest volume-wise of material I've ever dropped gold out of. I don't know that we're going to get a huge amount of gold out of it, but we got a huge volume of liquid here. Give it a stir. I would say it is darkening up. I don't know if that's showing up on the video, but it's definitely showing up my eye. It's darkening up. The auto iris on the camera tends to compensate as it gets darker. Oh yeah, it's definitely darkening up. I'm going to put in another spoonful just to be on the safe side. Oh, we're really going to have a lot of salt in here now since I put the SMB in. Yeah, oh yeah, it's darkening up. Okay. It's just such a dark green to start with. It's really hard to see. But yes, I do believe we are getting a gold drop. Yes. I just had to help it along with a little SMB. It started out on its own. Alright, I'm surprised it took a minute to get started because the gold was trying to come out of solution on its own, but finally it did. It's darkened up nice. Looks like we might be getting some accumulation down on the bottom of the beaker. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. I'm just going to let this sit. Oh yeah, it's clearing from the top already. Oh yeah. I'm just going to let this sit and we'll see what settles out by morning. Alright, well, it's the next morning. And I got the bright idea of leaving the heat on low overnight, hoping that that would prevent a whole lot more salt crystals from forming, because I put a bunch of SMB in there and I knew that was going to form more salt. Something interesting has happened. The color has changed from green to brown. I assume that the sulfur dioxide produced by the SMB bleached the green color out. Most of that green color was probably dye from the solder mass. What's on the bottom of the beaker? Well, there's a whole lot of something down there. There's some lighter colored stuff which might be salt crystals, I'm not sure. But there's definitely a whole lot of something on the bottom of the beaker. Looks like gold and something else. Not sure what. So I think what I'm going to do is, because we got like 5 liters of liquid here. Well, first I'm going to do a stannous chloride test. I'll probably do that off camera. Make sure we got all the gold out of solution. And then if so, I'll probably siphon the liquid off directly into Johnny's stock pot. I have a stock pot set up just for Johnny's stuff so we don't cheat him out of any of his precious metals. And then we'll deal with what's in the bottom of the beaker. Okay? Let me glove up and get to work. I just now came out of the house to see this. Okay, after siphoning the liquid off, most of it anyway, is what I'm left with. So it's clearly not all gold. There's some sort of fibrous stuff down there and a lot of crystals. I imagine the crystals are salt. I don't know what the fibrous stuff is. Something that condensed out of the liquid, probably from the solder mask dye. I don't know. So clearly this needs to be re-refined for sure. I think step 1 is going to be to capture all the solids on a filter and get the rest of this nasty liquid off of it. So I'll vacuum filter it. I've got some distilled water heating up in the fume hood over here. And what I'll do is I'll rinse the liquid in here with that, with the hot water, and we'll see if we can dissolve some of the crystals, which if they're, I think they're just salt, so they should go away. And we'll rinse the remains of this brownish green stuff out of the gold. And then I'm going to have to put the filter in a beaker and just redissolve this stuff and start over again. See if I can clean it up some. So, all right, let me get to filtering anyway. That part done. Yeah, I siphoned as much off as I dared. I didn't want to suck up a lot of the gold. All right. Gonna have to persuade this stuff out of the beaker. It's pretty thick, but let me get more of the liquid out of the way first. I hope a lot of that's gold and not just grunge, but I guess we'll see. I mean, it's a lot of brown stuff here. Looks like gold, but there's a lot of other stuff too. Yeah, I'd say there's a fair amount of gold here, but it's definitely polluted with a lot of other stuff. Yeah, if I get below this layer of lighter colored stuff, there's a lot of dark brown, almost certainly gold there. I would say whatever was in that liquid reacted with the SMB, the sulfur dioxide from the SMB, and created some weird precipitate. Okay. To pull all this liquid off of that mess in there, I'll rinse it some warm water through it, and then I'll take the filter out and put it in a beaker, and we'll start redissolving that gold and see if we can clean it up some. All right, here's a quick tip for you. I just cleaned this beaker out that I precipitated the gold in here in. My first step whenever I clean out a beaker that I have precipitated gold in is to wipe it out with a damp piece of paper towel, okay? Because you've almost always got really fine gold stuck to the inside of the beaker that just doesn't want to come off with the water sprays. And I don't want to lose it, so I'll always wipe it off with a little piece of paper towel first before I go to the serious cleaning of the beaker to get it nice and shiny clean like it is now. I will put this with Johnny's paper and filter storage. I have a bucket just for paper and filter storage for his work. That's going to go in there. At some point we'll recover all the gold on the paper and filters of Johnny's stuff. So there's a tip for you. And I never precipitate gold in a vessel like this that I can't wipe out easy, because I know there's going to be gold stuck on the inside of it. I only precipitate it on a vessel I can wipe out so I can get that. Okay, and get the gold out from inside the beaker so it doesn't contaminate the next thing I'm doing. Next time I might be working with silver and I don't want to contaminate it with gold. So, you know. All right, I've got some warm water here. It's not boiling hot, just warm. I'm going to filter it across the stuff in here and hopefully dissolve some of the salt crystals I see in there mixed in with the gold and the other gunge in there. We'll get rid of that, hopefully. And then I'll take the filter out and we will begin the reprocessing of the gold. All right, rinsing this stuff with warm water seems to have worked really, really well. Let me kill this pump. Now that we're essentially done, hear myself think, the gold in here looks really, really clean now. All those white crystals, which were probably salt, have dissolved and gone away. And whatever the green fibrous stuff that was mixed in with the gold and the salt was, it's gone too. They must have been some sort of crystals as well, because they've dissolved and gone away. I'll give you a look with my phone at what I'm seeing in the filter here, but this looks like just clean gold mud. So this gold may not be as dirty as I first thought after this warm water rinse. Yep, there's the gold mud down the bottom of the filter. It actually looks like pretty clean gold. All right, I'm going to get the filter out of here, and I'm going to put it in a beaker. And we'll redissolve it and reprecipitate it, just to make sure that we get it cleaned up good. I'll filter it before reprecipitating it to get any nastiness out of it. All right, let's get this gold refined. Let me put the fume hood on. Gonna put some muriatic acid on it, as per usual. Don't need too much this time. Probably more than enough. Yeah, get a stir rod in there, get that all under the liquid. Now, I said I was going to do this gold recovery without using any nitric acid. But now I'm refining. Do I need nitric acid now? Not necessarily. There's some really fine gold in here. And really fine gold responds really well to being dissolved with the bleach and hydrochloric acid method. So we're going to do that again. Not so much bleach this time. It shouldn't take too much. So I've measured out some, but probably won't even need all this. Yeah, fume hood's going. I'll just put a little bit in at a time until I see all the gold dissolved. It shouldn't take too much. I'm going to put a little bit more in to get us started. And then cover it up to keep the chlorine in. And I'll just add more as necessary, but I got a feeling this gold's going to dissolve pretty quickly and easily with just a little bit of the bleach. I mean, look at the color already. Is that not a beautiful color of like gold going into solution right there? And we've just started. So that's great. All right. I don't think I'm going to put any heat to it. The hot plate's still a little warm from when I warmed up the rinse water. So that's probably more than hot enough to make this reaction work. I don't want to drive the chlorine out of solution. I want it to stay in there and do what it needs to do. All right, so as for this intriguing colored stuff in my filter flask, I've done a stannous chloride test on it. Doesn't have any gold in it. It is slightly pink-orange, though. Which, what? Platinum? Rhodium, maybe? Possibly? So I'm going to put this in Johnny's stock pot. And we'll see what we get out of this when we recover all of the precious metals in his stock pot. Although, Johnny, don't get your hopes up for a lot of platinum and rhodium. Just a trace here. And I'd have to run the stock pot for years and years for it to build up enough probably for a recoverable amount. So, but we're not going to put it to waste. It will go in your stock pot. All right, all of the gold looks to be in solution. Look at that beautiful deep orange color there we've got to that liquid. Wow. Got a layer of paper pulp on the bottom. The paper filter has completely fallen apart. What I'm going to do is I'm going to uncover this. And I'm going to put a little low heat on it. And drive the chlorine off just like last time. And yeah, there's all that paper pulp. Then we'll filter the paper pulp out. Let me get a pipette and we'll put a little bit of sulfuric acid in there. So while we're waiting for the chlorine to be driven off. And let me get a little bit of sulfuric acid in a pipette. I got my sulfuric acid container out of view of the camera here. That's about a, what is that, 1.5 milliliters? That is probably much more than we need because I doubt we have any real lead in here after everything it has been through. That lead should be long gone, precipitated out before now. All right, so we'll let this warm up a bit, drive off the chlorine, and we'll filter it and drop the gold again. All right, I want to filter this stuff. It's still pretty hot though, plus it's very concentrated. We got about 350 milliliters here. All that gold's dissolved in there. Gold likes to come out of a dilute solution. So I'm going to dilute this stuff a little bit. And it's not quite double the volume. That's also going to cool it down, so I don't have to worry about my filter dissolving. And we can filter this stuff. I'll clean the beaker after filtration and we can drop the gold. And we'll get all this paper pulp out of the liquid here. Nice clean filtrate coming through. All right. So I will get all this stuff through the filter, wash the color out of the filter, clean the beaker, put the liquid back in the beaker, and then we'll go in the fume hood and drop the gold again. Okay, I think we're ready to precipitate the gold again. Isn't that a much nicer looking solution than the green muck who precipitated it from the first time around? Oh yeah, that is a nice looking solution. All right. So I'm making some iron sulfate. Actually, I'm doing it in the other side of the fume hood over here. I'm dissolving some old iron nails in sulfuric acid, but it is not ready for prime time yet. So we're going to good old stump out again by Bonide, which contains sodium metabisulfite, and we will precipitate the gold that way one more time here. Come on, you can do it! You can do it! I have faith. Yeah, there's the color fading. And after the color fades, then it gets dark. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm going to put another spoonful in, just seal the deal. Make sure, just in case we've got some, well, half a spoonful, just in case we still got some chlorine in there. But there's a lot of white foam. That's always a good sign to see the white foam. Oh, look at that. Gold-plated my stir rod. Yeah, I shouldn't have left that in there. All right, I will wipe that off and put the piece of paper towel in with Johnny's rag and paper storage. That happens from time to time. Be careful. All right, we'll let that settle. And then I think we're going to have some much cleaner and nicer gold to deal with. Should be able to get it cleaned up, dried out, and get a weight on it. I'm hoping. Okay, I was gone for maybe 35 or 40 seconds, just long enough to clean up the stir rod here. And look at this. The liquid's starting to clear, the gold's settling out. That's quick. That's really quick. That's a sign we've got some good clean gold here. Yeah, I think we're getting a really good gold drop. All right, I'm just going to let it settle, and then we'll deal with it when the liquid clears up. Would you look at this? It's been maybe another minute. Clean up the bench a little bit. I come over here. Holy moly, that gold is settling out quick. I like that, though. That's nice. I normally let this stuff sit overnight, but it's only the middle of the afternoon. I think this stuff will probably be ready to deal with later today. Well, would you look at that? A couple hours later, this has settled out nice. There's still a little something in the water, but I wasn't expecting to be perfectly clean. I've done a stannous chloride test on it. There's no more gold in solution, so I don't know what that color is. This would probably be a good time for you down below in the comments to leave your best guess for how much gold we got in here, because it looks like a fair amount. I'm going to do... Well, actually, I don't think I need to do my usual thing. Normally, I would siphon the liquid off to avoid disturbing it down there, but you know what? This stuff settled so quickly. It's not colloidal or near colloidal. I think I can just, decant off the liquid and then start giving it cleanup oils in distilled water. So after 2-3 cleanup oils, dry it out, see what we got. All right, so I'm going to get started on that. All right, here's another look at the gold to help you make up your mind about how much you think we might have here. And this stayed together in one blob in the bottom of the beaker as I poured all the liquid off of it into Johnny's stock pot. That is some nice gold. The color's good. It's getting dark, so it looks darker than it is. But yeah, color's good. And it is just staying together nice. All right, let me get some cleanup boils going on this stuff. All right, drying up the gold after its cleanup boils. Man, that stuff looks good. And it looks like there's a fair amount of it there, too. All right, we'll be weighing it soon. Stay tuned for that. Normally when gold dries out, it really shrivels up a lot, but that is still an impressive looking pile in the bottom of that beaker. I think we got a lot of gold here. I can't wait to weigh it. Let's do that next. All right, here we go. It's the moment of truth. Starting to wonder if my weigh boat's big enough to get all this in it. Johnny, I might need bigger weigh boats to deal with your stuff. Let's see if I can do this without spilling it. Yeah, this is a lot more gold than I was expecting to get out of those fingers. Holy cow, we're 3.3 grams already. 4.28. I don't know if I can get it all in this weigh boat, Johnny. 4.78. Let me get, there's 503. Let me get another weigh boat, and then we'll add them together. I'm really afraid of spilling it here, and I don't want to do that. So we got 503 in the first one. Let's see what we get in this one. So I am working on a piece of clean paper towel, which is one reason why I did do this, just in case I do spill some gold. It's easy enough to recover off the paper towel. But wow. .3 grams again, 3.4. Wow. Johnny, we got over 10 grams gold here. Holy cow. 10.33 grams of gold from those 1.5 kilos of fingers. And so a lot of them were even only single-sided, but a lot of them were really old phenolic ones with thick gold. So find some more of those, Johnny. Those are the good ones. Wow. 10.33 grams of gold. That is a lot more than I was expecting to get out of this. It was a hard-fought battle, but apparently it was worth it because we got over 1/3 of an ounce of gold here. Holy cow! That's what is that at today's prices? It's well over $1,000. All right. I still got about twice that many fingers to process. So I got to figure out a way to make it a little easier, a little less labor-intensive and time-consuming and chemical-intensive, but I'll give that some thought, and I think we'll be revisiting the rest of Johnny's fingers in the future. But yeah, this was definitely worth the effort for this much gold. All right, well, woo! I couldn't be more pleased with the amount of gold we got out of these fingers. If you guys are pleased with this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave a comment and tell me if you like this longer formatted video or not. Let me know. And subscribe to see future videos. A lot more stuff of Johnny's to process and some of my own. So subscribe to see those, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching this one. Bye.